Bonsoir. Today I'm talking with Rachel Dubois, or Rachel Dubois. We talked about how living abroad earlier in her life allows her now to connect worldwide from a small village in France. The challenges of raising her children and being inspired by people.
I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button, because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everyone, and with me I have Rachel. Actually, I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Is that Rachel? Rachel? I don't even know how to pronounce the name.
In French, it would be Rachel. In English, I guess it's Rachel. But I don't mind about how do you pronounce my name. I'm not attached to that, so pronounce it the way it spells better for you, and is really good enough for me.
And with that, we kind of jumped into it that you speak both French and English. And to show people a little bit on where you are, let's bring you. So what you see here is me. Oh, and
it's also France.
That's Toulouse, I think. Oh wait, where is it?
Oh,
it moved. Yeah, so you're somewhere in Toulouse, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, even outside of it, I'm in a very tiny village in the countryside of Toulouse. It's called the Lauragais, which is the very countryside, very hilly countryside of Toulouse. And it's a very, very tiny village. I'm not sure you can find it because it's like very small, like 200 people. But let's say we are there. It's good enough.
We are there somewhere. It's a neighborhood. I've been one of the first times I've been to Narbonne.
Nice.
With my partner, and I've been a few times, I think, to Carcassonne. So I've been in the neighborhood. I'm pretty sure I've visited Toulouse some time ago. And just to show, and strangely enough, it was already on Toulouse. Normally I start with myself, and I'm of course still in Belgium, which is about 1,000 kilometers away from where you are. And let's bring both of us back on screen. And I'm here at on my side. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock. And what's it the time on your side?
Yeah, it's 9:07. Just to mention that I live in a tiny village, and I live just in front of the church. So our listener may hear the church ring because she rings at 30 past the hour and the hour. So if you hear a whole church ringing, that comes from very south of France. That will tell you the hour live, would say.
And then we know more or less the time, or then we know exactly the time, because indeed when we started talking to each other, it was just 9 o'clock, and then the bells rang. And in that, we jumped right into that. But before we continue with the questions, please introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you want people to know about you?
That's a tricky question. So I'm going to go very simply. So hello, I'm Rachel. I'm an agile coach. I work at Spotify. I've been working in the software industry for the last 25 years each. Started by being a web developer. We used to call that webmaster, and then moved to product, and then for 15 years or so, 17 years or so, and then ended up being a coach and a trainer for the last 15 years. I live in south of France, as we said. I'm with my husband, Laurent, and my 2 kids, 2 cats and dogs in a very tiny village in south of France. And I think we look back, so I'm really happy to talk with you today, Yves.
I'm really happy because we've known each other for a while, even before I think you joined Spotify. We've been running into each other, mostly online, I would say.
Yeah, in conferences as well, I think.
Exactly. So that's why I was really looking forward to have you here for having this conversation. And well, let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
So what people don't know about me is from the 1975 when I was born up to, I would say, 95s, I've been living abroad, my homeland, which is France, and I've been living in plenty of countries, in Central Africa, in Libya, in Kuwait, in South America, in United States, in Canada, in Asia. So I've been like globetrotting with my family. And that shaped really who I am today. So I would say the first third of my life was like moving around and like visiting countries and meeting plenty of people, plenty of ways of living, of cultures, of languages, of places, and that's and the 2/3 of that is quite static in France. And I'm from a tiny village now, and I'm still meeting with like people from everywhere in the world. So I think that shaped a lot who I am today, because I feel even though I live in a tiny village, I really feel I'm a citizen of the world. I feel connected to people in Australia and South America because I talk to them, but because I know their homeland, I know their countries, I know sometimes some of their languages. Yeah.
Well, and I would say, especially as well, not to offend you, but I think you speak very well English compared to most of your countrymen or countrywomen. I know a lot of French people. They do a lot of effort, but are not always that fluent in English. And you're really fluent in English, I think. I think it's probably influenced by these years that you moved around.
And by Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I owe Jean-Luc Picard some of my English, because when I moved to Canada when I was a preteen, when I moved to Canada, I was not at all speaking English, not at all. And there was this TV show running there, like the Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And I was like craving for it. I was like, I want to follow it. So I was watching those ones, not understanding a word of that, but like watching that every day on a daily basis, 1 or 2 hours, like watching the show, being passionate by that. So I think I owe my English to Jean-Luc Picard and Deep Space Nine.
Wow, that's a very nice extra story. And just for my information, I know that in France, for example, a lot of the TVs and movies are dubbed. How was that in Canada? Because I know Canada has also a dual language, a lot of English, a lot of French. How was that at that time? Was everything fully in English then?
I was living in Quebec. In Quebec, you have both of them. You can watch TV shows in full French or full English, but with subtitles. And the one I was watching was from the cable, so going from the US. So it was just full English.
Only English.
Yeah. I don't know how to speak Klingon, I must say. I know English, but I don't know how to speak Klingon.
Well, there's limits to what we can learn from a TV show.
Absolutely. Even though you can learn Klingon. This is a real language. You can learn it.
Yeah, and I know that I think you also know the responsibility process, and it's been translated in many languages. And a friend of mine in Belgium, Erik Talboom, translated it into Klingon just for the fun of it.
Love that.
I just like the idea. Is like, okay, well, we'll translate it to languages. It's a serious language. Let's also do that.
Look, or in Elfic, you can turn it into Elfic thanks to the work that has been done around the Lord of the Ring and things like that, and Tolkien and.
Yeah, that. This is when culture or arts and everything take over life in a way, and yeah, that's just fun. Well, for me, I think it's fun to see these kind of things, and you can actually take it seriously. I'll link to later on in the show notes. I'll link to the Klingon thing as well to make sure that people can find it. Okay, let's move to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what could have become of you? Was there anything that you were destined to become when you were young?
Yeah, absolutely. I was supposed to be an orthoptic. I don't know how to translate that. I think it's a mix between optometrist and ophthalmologist in US. I went to med school and I graduated from there, so I have the diploma and so on and so forth. So I even did like specialized.
I'm speaking with a doctor here.
Not a doctor in like I'm not a generalist doctor. I'm like it's more a paramedic, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's really about like how binocular sight, like how people use their two eyes so that they can see 3D, they can function together. And I specialize into two things. It was like how to take care of blind or disabled children, and also to be working in operations, like no surgery, being assistant on surgery. So I think I would have done that because that was the road to that until I switched. And what could I have done else?
And what made you switch? What made you switch?
Oh, I needed to put bread on the table. Because I got graduated. I was really happy. I was super proud. I was like major of my promotion. I was super happy. But when I entered the school, there was a lot of jobs offered, and when I exit that 4 years after, there was less because of the economicals, like I would say. So I started my career doing some like filling interim position where like for people who would go on parental leaves or sick leaves or things like that. But that happens like you do a few weeks here, a few weeks there with like in between situation. And I was on my own since a few years already. So at some point you need to put a roof on your in your head, over your head, and some bread on the table. So that was not functioning for me. I was not able to make it a living really at those moments. And someday a friend of mine called me and say, "Hey Rachel, are you still doing your website stuff?" Because I was like, my father offered me a computer when I was a a teenager, and like it taught me how to code and things like that. So, and I got passionate by internet and things like that. So I was doing those like websites of the 90s, so not the websites today, to be very very specific. And I was doing
that's
that
what
for
we all did at that moment.
Yeah,
that's
I think so. I think so. And for non-profit associations and small shops and things like that, and say, are you still doing that? Because if you do that, we search somebody to do that, like being webmaster for one startup that we are launching. Was those first generations of startup in Europe, and we pay you, I don't know, significant amounts of money if you can do that.
Better
like,
than
of
everything
course.
that you did before.
Yeah, of course. So and suddenly putting bread on my table was not an issue anymore. And I was doing something that I was really passionate by that. So I was, yeah.
And was
I
that
took
kind
that
of a
turn.
surprise that you could make money with that hobby in a way?
It was really. It was. I never thought about that. I think it's the good surprise life gives you sometimes, when you are very into those dark moments and everything looks like ended roads, and suddenly here it comes and you have an option. So yeah, it was.
And
since
that's
then
also how I
I'm
know
still...
you. Yeah, when you have these options, you jump for it, and you take the opportunity. I'm not sure how much choice you had, because like you said, you needed to have bread on the table. But at the same time, when you see such an option, it's also very logical to jump for that, of course.
Yeah, and I was in my early 20s, so when you are young, you believe you believe everything is really possible because you haven't hit the word that much. So you just do
And
it.
in that sense, you
It's
never
fresh.
had a formal IT education. Is that
No,
how?
not at all. I'm self-taught, really.
But at a very young age, because you did it, yeah, even before your studies, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, I think my father brought us the first computer when I was like 12 years old. I'm 47, so you can do the math very easily. So yeah, it was like learn how to code in BASIC, in Pascal. I don't know if you know that language, or maybe it was speaking
Yeah, it's
French in
been both
BASIC, Pascal, Turbo Pascal, and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, both these languages I had to learn in school because I did have a formal education, and yeah, sometimes nice, sometimes not. But indeed, it's the languages we had. But at the same time, you did, like you said, you also created websites and HTML and everything there,
Yeah,
which was
because
probably before CSS and anything existed. It
oh
was
yeah,
really
it
basic.
was way before that. Because I started on in the web, I think it was 93, 94.
Wow.
Then I had my first internet connection, and I saw those websites because I was passionate with role-playing games, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, not to name it, and you could find like BBS and small websites about like to find like role-playing scenarios and games and like characters, and you can. So that was the what triggers that, and then I got into a club of a role-playing club, and we wanted to do our homepage, and this is the way it starts, with the basic HTML, and then you do a bit of PHP, and then you want to add a bit of database and and there you go. And at some point, I got also passionate because there was a company that was called Macromedia that was bought after that by Adobe, that created a small technology that was called Flash, and you could do some cartoons, animated stuff.
Wow,
And
you
yeah,
even did that. That's
that was really amazing. Yeah.
You could do nice stuff. There's
Yeah.
lots of people that didn't like it, but you could do lots of nice stuff with it, and your website really looked completely different.
Yeah, it was like,
Indeed.
it sounds like the future to us by then. So it's like,
I remember even one of my first websites, the front page, a friend of mine made a real nice flash animation just to, I don't remember anymore, to put my logo on, and then it disappeared. But
you
it
could
was
make
fun at the time.
It's the equivalent of like PowerPoint animation that we have today. But it was fun. It was fun. It was really crafty and fun. That's how I came there.
But that's interesting because that's indeed, and not many people know these histories. So it's nice to also talk a little bit about what were the things that we did back then.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to move to that third question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, at least the biggest challenge that you want to share?
Mm-hmm. So on that one, I had a very deep thinking. I was like, is it that? Is it that? Is it that? And then I came up with, I really truly believe that my biggest challenge is raising my kids. I know it may sound weird. It's not agile coaching, not at all, but it's really what I believe is raising them to be like the citizens of tomorrow, to be decent humans, to cope with the world that we're living and how it's challenged and the beautiful and the ugly of it. And
You didn't get the manual with your children.
No,
how to raise them.
it's so challenging and so rewarding in the same time. It pushes me always outside of my comfort zone. I'm doubting a lot. I'm scared to do wrong. I'm questioning. I'm learning myself. I'm asking them a lot. I
What age
really
are
believe
they
they
at this moment?
they go on 10 and 12s.
And it's a challenging years. Well, every year has its own
Every year.
challenges, but it's like, yeah, they're not yet in puberty, but they have already some of these things of puberty, and you see, yeah.
Oh, they started that.
Yeah.
They're most on the preteen side of the things. So they became more independent, and I'm really amazed watching them growing and becoming themselves. It's, yeah, I learned so much. They teach me patience, because I was not patient at all. I could always improve on that, but they teach me a lot on that. They teach me a lot of also the need to let go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Children can do that.
yeah, this one was like, oh. And also they also helped me about clarifying what is important to me, what's the core of the things, what's the essence of everything.
And
Yeah,
that really helps also for letting go. I mean,
yeah,
if
absolutely.
something goes strange, it's like, okay, is this something I want to worry about? Is it something I want to let go? And if you know your core, and if you really think about your core, then it's easier to let go. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to let go if you say, okay, that's not the core. Right? Let's try not to worry too much about that, even if it's sometimes hard to not do that.
No, and they push me as well to also position myself on some of the key topics like inclusivity, gender, the conversation regarding gender inclusivity, or we have a lot of conversation nowadays, because you know that in France it's been very, very shaky those days later. So we had those
Oh, yes.
passionate conversation regarding racism. So it's they pushes us with their questions, with their expectations on us as adults. And this is something that like really forces you to go further, like to really say, okay, this is what we believe in the family, this is what we care about, this is what we are not okay with. Like, no.
I can imagine that these are, and especially these preteens and teens children are really, that's, of course, they have friends all over the place, and then they think about it. They are very connected in most cases, so then
Exactly.
they see a lot of the things. And just for the record, we're recording this on the 4th of July, and just a couple of weeks ago, I think, what is it? It's less than a week ago, there was
5 days, 6 days.
So that's there's still a lot of happening. Even in Belgium, in Brussels, there is still a lot of happening because of turmoil that that is as a result of what happened in France. And I do remember even back 20 years ago, there were similar kind of riots in France that were at a similar level, because
because we didn't
police
solve the question.
Exactly. There was still a lot of problems that still exist. And I wanted to move to that second part of that question, that, okay, what's the biggest challenge? But why is that a good thing for you? What is so good about that challenge that you have with raising your children?
I think what is very good is that they bring the best out of me. Even I'm not gonna name it, but I met sometimes, like, I think it was like 10, 15 years ago, I met a very well-known coach, and we were chit-chat at the conference, and we were chit-chatting, and we say about like coaching and helping people to grow, and he said, do you have kids? And I was like, not at all. And said, okay, so you can't call yourself a coach. And I was like, what? I felt, I was like, that was like patronizing me a lot. Like I really didn't like it. So I kind of pushed back politely, but pushed back still. And now, a few years after, even though I still feel it was a kind of patronizing me.
Yeah, it feels like a patronizing thought, but
But behind
you understand it better.
Yeah, I understand better. I see how much they change me. I see how much they force me to bring the best out of who I am. Like them, I'm more listening. I doubt more. I'm asking myself more questions. I'm also more okay to let go and observe. And this fits me as a coach, as a mentor, as a leader on my daily work. They teach me a lot. So yeah, that's the positive effect they have on me.
Yeah, I can imagine. At the same time, I do understand fully the way that the message was brought to you felt very strange, and I do know some really good coaches that don't have any even big agile
Yeah,
names, that
absolutely.
don't have any children. So I don't believe the idea. At the same time, I think it's just all about what comes to our path, and of course, children are in our day-to-day life, and of course that forces us a lot to rethink. For me, it's similar to, okay, if you are a coach but you've never been coached yourself, you also don't understand some of the
Exactly.
nuances. And so that's, but we can all have different kind of experience to come to something similar. And apparently for that person, having children was the big difference, which doesn't mean that it's wrong or the only way, I would say.
Exactly. I think what he wanted to point it out is the transformative part. That to be a good coach, you have to face at some point a something that pushes you to questions about like who I am, what I do, how I do it, what it is that I want to do on the world, and also that questions your relationships with others. So
And for
his
me,
example
children.
was children, but it could be anything else. Could be another meaningful moment or meaningful aspect.
Yeah, and for me, children are, of course, the typical kind of relation of a person that you completely love, but at the same time, you sometimes really like, and then you want to, okay, but you still afterwards you think about it and you realize, okay, they were right, and because of that love and everything there, and yeah, there are other kind of relations like that, but the love between a parent and a child is for most people a very high connection and a very deep connection that of course creates these kind of tensions and creates the kind of lessons, I would say.
Mm.
Thanks for sharing that, because it's interesting. Many people, when we talk about the biggest things, that we'll come to that question later on, then they mention the children, but I don't think I've had anyone who talked about the biggest challenge, and I so recognize it. It's really it's one of the hardest jobs that we all have. um, just today, a friend of mine shared something on LinkedIn about a challenge that she had with her daughter, with school related, and it's all a positive message, but at the same time it was like, okay, that was again a challenge, and how do we deal with it
Mm.
and work with that? And so that's indeed a very important part of who we are, I would say, and then definitely who you are.
Yeah.
And I want to move that to that next question, because it actually, this is already a lot about passion. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you as a very passionate person. If you talk at conferences, if you just write and everything you do, but do you have any idea what drives you? Where is that passion coming from? Is that something you recognize from somewhere else?
I think so. When you asked me like what drives you, I was like, and I asked people who knows me like what drives me from the outside, and they all say
Mm,
the same thing: passion, passion, passion. And if you go inside the passion, it will be people and curiosity. I'm really passionate about people. I really love to meet new people. It's gonna sound very weird what I'm gonna say, but anyway, we're safe to say that. So I really love to observe people, like to sit in the park and
mm,
just quietly and just like observe people hanging out, passing by. You know, I love to. I really love trains because in trains you can meet people. You are never going to see them again. You don't know them, but you just share. piece of something, a moment in time. I love that. Traveling is like amazing as well, or hiking is really good. So I really love people. That's why I love conference as well. And then it would be curiosity. I think I'm a big learner. I think I'm a learner. I'm really passionate by everything that I don't know. And the more I study, the more I learn, the more the more I discover things that I don't know. So yeah, I'm driven by that. I was like thinking like what excites you? What was your best project I have done? And I'm, to be super honest, what the best project for me or the best things for me is always the next one. It either in my professional life, like I'm super motivated by. I just finished being the host of Agile Toulouse. I just closed that less than 1 month ago, and I'm already passionate about, okay, next year what's gonna happen? Can we do a hackathon? Da da da. So I'm kind of like chasing that new
curiosity and learning and everything. And that's indeed how you come across at conferences. When somebody talks about something, you can really, I would say, listen passionately. You say it, observe, but I would say also listen and ask questions to understand what things are, and at the same time in an active way. I think like you say, okay, as a part of organizing Agile Toulouse and part of organizing other things, like not just sitting on the side, is that a correct way to look at you? It's really, and that drives, and that's where people see that passion in you.
I discovered Agile in the very beginning of 2000-ish. And I think that my first conference was like 2008 because I wanted to share back and to learn from the community. I'm still on that learning journey. For example, there was one thing that really attracted me to be in Spotify is like having the opportunity to meet like those awesome people and to learn from them. Like to feel again like I'm a beginner again. I don't know anything. I'm going to relearn everything from the beginning. So yeah.
And I can imagine at Spotify the things move so fast that you have to keep learning to keep up with everything. Is that a correct way to look at it?
That's true. And in the same time, I think that's the very first time I see so many bright minds, so very talented, smart people per square meter. They have a high concentration of those ones. And when I onboarded, I was amazed by that, by how fast the idea flows and the thinking goes very fast, very deep, it's very accurate. It's very exciting. So I was really amazed by them. I'm still super amazed. Being 2 years in, I'm still like, okay, I'm just at the beginning of my journey. I'm a kind of I remember when I joined, somebody asked me like, how do you feel? I say, I feel like I am a 5 years of age that kids that enters the best candy shop ever. You know, there's like plenty of amazing stuff everywhere. And I was like, I want to learn that. I want to know that. I want to do that. Da, da, da. That's the spirit.
So lots of interesting things. Yeah. And that is something I see with lots of your colleagues also, that people still are amazed, and it still is a nice place to
be. You got to talk with Jason, I believe, and Marcin as well. So I think those two also shared this amazing astonishment that one can have.
Yeah, and I had the opportunities already twice to visit your offices. Once because I wanted to work there, walk around there for a week. I was able to do that. But then later with Gitte Klitgard, we also organized an Agile, I was about to say coach camp. I mean an Agile coach retreat. in the offices, in the new offices in Stockholm, and I was amazed again at seeing also the creativity just in the offices. It's wonderful, and also, well, having some of these people in these coach retreats, that was nice as well.
It's exciting.
I want to move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement so far? And the question, of course, below is that this is a moment to brag, and I really like to know, is that something that is easy for you? Is it easy for you to brag and to be really proud of something?
Yes and no. I'm dealing with a very strong imposter syndrome that drags me down on a regular basis. For example, I said that I'm so amazed I joined Spotify. Okay, the cost of that, the token of that, is I went through a 6 months mini crisis of this imposter syndrome that pushed me to say, you know what, you don't deserve that. You are a fraud there. You have to learn more. And that was the very beginning was really harsh, and I worked a lot to cope with them, which was stupid. Of course, it's like a bias that we have on ourselves, and I could burn myself. So it's not that easy. I'm proud of plenty of things I have achieved in my life. So professionally, I'm super proud to have been working for the French government for the employment agency, which is called Pôle Emploi, and to have participated to the project of rewriting totally the process of enrollment. So that sounds weird, but it's something that has an impact. Is like the previous system that was very old and outdated system. When you were losing your job, imagine you lose your job, to get the insurance back, like the coverage, the work insurance, you would have to go to fill in some paperwork, but really paperwork, to send them back by post mail and then receive it, and then you will have to call to meet people. So everything would take you, I would say, minimum 10 to 15 days. And those days
and in France, sometimes bureaucracy can be really like, it has to be exact correctly. Yeah. So
and it's too much on your shoulder because you just lose your job. So what is really, it's stressful because you don't know how you are going to feed your family, how you are going to put bread on the table, how you are going to pay your rent, your mortgage, whatever. So you are super stressed, and then you have to do all that paperwork stuff, and it would take you 2 weeks, sometimes three weeks to know if you are going or not to be covered by the insurance. You don't know. So it's quite inhuman sometimes. And I'm super proud to have been working with the team that participate that, to rewrite that, to create an app where the people, the beneficiary, could like connect to, fill in a form, and to know very immediately, like in few seconds, are you or are you not going to be covered? And if yes, how much?
And so you know it almost instantly then.
Yeah.
With the app. Wow.
That's
a huge.
that's
talking
a
about
change.
removing waste. I mean, that's a real big thing.
And that was a very huge project, very nice project. I'm just a tiny part of the talented team that worked on that. I'm super proud of that. I'm really proud. I'm proud of plenty of things, but this one was really proud.
Well, it's also part of changing the world and really making the world for something better. If you talked earlier about showing your children about values and everything, this is a nice project to say, okay, this is really making the lives of lots of people better at the moment that they really need that support, because it doesn't matter what you've done for work. It doesn't matter how smart you are. At some point you lose your job and you're immediately back to, oh, my whole world is falling apart. And now I have to fill in forms very stressful, because of course if you make a mistake it could turn into losing a lot of money. So every kind of support for these kind of things is really helpful. So it's indeed a nice achievement to do. And like you say, maybe you're just a very small part of it, but at the same time you were a part of it, and thanks to that.
We did it in a very agile way. I was on the product side, product management side. I'm super proud of everything around that. That's good agile, good agile software development. This is really,
And it's nice to hear that it's in government, because and sometimes I hear people saying, well, in government, there's always people saying agile, you can't do it there or there. And usually it all means like, if we find the right people, we can do it everywhere, and we can learn it. And there might be exceptions, but still, every time I hear somebody saying you can't do agile there, then with just a little bit of searching, I find someone else who did it in a similar kind of situation. So this is a nice story to share, because indeed,
I agree with you. I really agree with you. I choose that one because of that, because I agree with you on that. If agile only works when you are a startup, when you have the highest class engineer, when you have blah blah blah, and all those prerequisites, then it becomes like a luxury. And this is not my agile.
I like the way that you phrase it, because it's indeed, sometimes people think, you need to have the perfect situation. No, for me, it's actually when the situation is not perfect that agile bring you most value. Then you will see you'll see your problems much faster. You will have much faster feedback. You can deal with that. If everything goes fine, maybe you don't need much agile. Okay, there is a reason why things might go fine. But if things are really going bad, and unfortunately we see in a lot of companies the opposite. When things going back, they want to go back to their old structures of command and control and everything. That's the kind of opposite as what you want to do. So then it's nice to have stories like this one. Okay, I want to move to that next question about a personal agility tip. Do you have a tip you want to share with the people here?
So that question really puzzled me because of personal agility. I didn't know if it was like agility to self or my very own way of seeing agile. So I was like a bit puzzled on that one.
Well, and I on purpose, I have similar kind of questions almost every time I do it. I get upfront or in the interview people questioning, and I on purpose don't want to define it, because that gives us again much more broader view and on what people think it is. So you can fill it in any way you want.
Okay. So I'm gonna take it from the agile perspective. So my as an agile coach, my very best advice is have fun, experiment, embrace the very essence of agile. I mean, like, lower the ego. Don't go for those frameworks. Like, don't go by the book. Forget by the books. Forget frameworks. Forget all of that stuff that kind of embed the idea of being compliant to them. And the agile I care about or I believe about is not about being compliant to agile. It's about being pragmatic. It's about solving together challenges. It's about like delivering value, like the example I gave you. So it's really about like experiment together. If a framework, a tool, a process, a practice doesn't fit you, get rid of it. Use the things that work for you. Tweak it. It's okay to tweak. It's okay to blend. It's okay to adjust. It's okay not to be perfect. Is nobody cares about like perfect Scrum team at all. That's not going to change the world. And what I believe is like we need to experiment new stuff. We need to enjoy doing it. We need to have proud of doing it. And so that would be my advice. And for the personal,
I really like that. The fun part, I really want to stress, because you started out with fun as well. I think it's one way to see, if you come to a new team and I can almost feel it if they're doing agile with that spirit that you just talked, by the fun that there is. If people are not having fun, usually I would say almost every time there is something very wrong with their agile way of working. You can really feel, I would say, I have the feeling that I can feel it. Remote, that's sometimes a little bit different, but still, you can notice that kind of things. It's emotions should be part of it. Go ahead, you wanted to add something.
And get rid of everything else.
But the Spotify model, Rachel, what about the Spotify model?
The Spotify model there is no model. There is no model. There is just people, smart people together. They're very, very, very agnostic when it comes to agile. They don't ask themselves that much those questions. They don't go by the book. They pick and choose what fits for them. They use it. If it doesn't work for them, they throw it. They don't spend time in doing that. I'm learning so much from them on that part. It's really, it's really refreshing.
I made a joke last week that Spotify is probably the one company that doesn't use the Spotify model.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you.
It's funny, and let's not go completely into that, but I think it's a nice example of you create sometimes your own kind of book, and at some point that book that turned into the Spotify model, or that internal way of, okay, this is helping, and this is helping to spread to how we want to work internally, but very quickly it moves on, and we're no longer doing that thing, even if it was ever done at some point.
It's a living creature, really, that evolves. You can't cross twice the same river, they said. It's the same.
Yes, and I think that's very clear for agile companies, that they move that quickly, and they turn into things very quickly, and then but of course it's the hard part of, if you want to help out a company and say, okay, what are you going to do? Well, we need to start somewhere, and we need to
so that's why, as an agile coach or agile practitioner or agile enthusiast, because like maybe the label agile coach is like maybe outdated, I don't know, but you need to know a lot of tools. You need to know a lot of tools, not just one, because if you just have one, then you want to apply it like it's very dumb this way. But you need to learn plenty of ways to do the same things, or because you need to have that. It's like when you want to play. I was thinking of my daughter, like trying to play piano. She's learning like to do the keyboard, and if you want to play in a very rich and a subtle way, you need to have a lot of notes. You need to have a lot of way to express the sound, a lot of variation. So as a professional, we need to have a lot of tools. We need to have a lot of practice that we can use, pick and choose, tweak, combine, change, adjust.
And the hard part is sometimes people ask you, okay, what will you do? And I have indeed a lot of things in my toolbox, but I sometimes forget for 10 years for something because I don't need it. And then all of a sudden, just a couple of weeks ago, I at the client, there was like some kind of thing. I was like, oh, but we could do this. And why did you never talk about it? Yeah, it's something I've done 10 years ago. And for whatever reason, it never popped up. And maybe I could have used it earlier, but sometimes we forget some of these things.
Yeah, and maybe you kind of matured it during the 10 years.
Also possible. That's also possible. Sometimes it needs to ripe in my brain and think, and things might move there as well. That's very. And you wanted to, I think you wanted to still add another thing about it. Did I?
On the personal part, like if you want to have personal agility, because there was a way I was like a bit puzzled on that. personal agility would be for me to how to one can really balance this work life / private life, because that and prioritize his own well-being to grow things around him or her. And on that very personal agility, they're like, which is weird, but I found like what helped me is like I learned how to set better boundaries. Not boundaries that are walls, but boundaries that are bridges. So this is more something that you learn how to find a way to connect better to people, but saying this is my limits. I'm fine with that. I'm respectful of that. I'm respectful of yours, and negotiate that. So that was a long journey to learn that. And also what really helped me is also practice mindfulness, meditation, mindfulness.
Yeah. It's
Kind of,
well,
yeah.
and I talked earlier about Tasha that I'm putting out a video live next Friday, and she's doing a lot of body work. So now she used to be an agile coach, and now she's more into the body work, and it's a really wonderful conversation because she's also doing some of that in a remote way, helping companies. And a little bit like what you say, that for her, and I think she's going a lot further than most people, but really, yeah, having meditation, mindfulness, any different kind of ways to really come to yourself and to help people to like, okay, this can help you to to become better in whatever you're doing. Yeah, because it's, and I think that's what I hear with a lot of people that work with mindfulness, is like they say that it helps them in a way to, okay, to connect with yourself and to say, okay, this is what helping me for boundaries, for less stress, for whatever that is needing you. And how did you discover that? How did that work for you?
I discovered that twice because in between I forgot.
Talking about tools that we
it's true. It's totally true. I learned that first when I was under my 30s, I think 28, something like that. I was a very passionate project manager, traveling the world and burning the candle from both sides. And I had a very huge burnout, the one you don't see coming, but that suddenly hits you. And I end up being in the hospital, having a arm broken and things like that.
Whoa,
so
okay,
quite dramatic. Yeah, a hard one. And then when you are forced to stay in a hospital, then you have to think, and this thinking thing and the therapy to go there and it teaches you some useful stuff. But life happens, and I say I'm super curious, and I'm sometimes chasing two things, two rabbits in the same time, so I tend to forget a lot of things, and I forgot that one. And 3 years ago, I got also another wall. I hit another wall. I got cancer. Like when COVID hit the world, cancer hit me. And that was and that was very tough to go through the chemo and the process, and to survive it. And
that during COVID, while you were not allowed to talk to many people or see many people.
Exactly.
Because in France there was also a very tight lockdown.
It was. We have had several lockdown. So it was really tough. But again, facing those kind of situations where you are like, this is the end of it, and it forces you to kind of hold on, stop, reflect, think, and to find. So that was the opportunity for me to remember those things.
And did you remember yourself, or did someone remember you, help you remember?
I remember myself but I was in a group talk, when you have several patients, like we were talking together. And somebody mentioned like, oh, I had that yoga and mindfulness that really helped me, and I was like, but that's true. I've been doing yoga for the last 10 years, and I totally stopped doing that, and I totally forgot that. So I kind of reconnected to that, and I reconnected to the mindfulness. And when you go into yourselves, when you listen your own body, when you listen your own flow of breath, when you observe your thinking and you calm down on that, it gives you clarity. And at the end of that, so I'm okay now. I'm better. I'm done with that. But it also teach me like the essence of that, how I need to protect myself. I have been given. I'm blessed to have been given extra life token, so I need to use it properly. So I remember that each day. I put my boundaries. I have this self care. I'm more mindful about myself so that it helps me to be mindful of others people around me, and also to manage better my energies, to better manage better my to manage better my energies in all the things I want to do. And yeah, so I do that. Personal agility, boundaries, and mindfulness.
It's a really powerful story, and I didn't know that happened, or at least I don't remember, but I don't think I've ever knew.
No.
But it's something, and that's what I wanted to say also a little bit. It sounds like this is something that you carried yourself. Is that also something that is part there, that you need to learn about boundaries and bridge, when you talk about boundaries and bridges at the same time? I mean, it sounds like something you carried a lot on your own. You're a very connected person. A lot of people know and care about you, but this feels like you didn't share it with the world. Is that true?
So on the moment it happened, I didn't share it that much. I just shared with few people I loved, and to be honest, when it happened to you, it's so much a shock that you might lose contact with the others. You might. I got blinded, I think, by the shock of it. So I felt alone doing that alone, which was not true because there was a lot of people around me supporting me from close to more far away. And yeah, I had some of them. They sent me some gifts to cheer with me. All the people that we have done the online Agile together. So I think for them. So and because when that happened, you feel so shocked that you keep it for yourself. You kind of feel a bit ashamed to have that. It's, I don't know. It's maybe not ashamed is the good word, but it's a weird feeling to have cancer. You feel out of the things. And now today I'm building bridges. I want to share that story more because I think that more and more people are facing it, and they can feel alone and isolated. They can feel it's too much. So I want to show them it's okay. It will happen to one human on two in the last 30 years. So we are going to go there. We can learn from each other. We can gain support from each other. Even though if we feel it's the end of the world for us and we are alone and isolated, we are not. There are plenty of people around us that supports us, that loves us, that care for us, that can help us. So yeah, boundary, bridges, and mindfulness.
Well, thanks for sharing, and thanks for sharing that extra part, because indeed, I think it's we have a lot of care for other people, but the hard part is we need to know at some point, and someone, so when you're that vulnerable, and that's I think it's very true what you say. When you're that vulnerable, you think you're alone, you don't see it, you don't reach out to the world, and it's only when you leave a little bit of spark that other people try to connect with you and tell you, like, hey, you're not alone.
We are there.
And sometimes it's hard to see it with people, and to and sometimes we know, oh, something's wrong, but okay, it's hard for people to share it. And so it's really important to, even if it's later, to still share and then say, okay, this is what I've learned from that, because it's, and I hope indeed that for the next years that you won't forget your mindfulness and that you can keep connected to that, because it seems an important toolbox for you. So
we are quite lucky in the Agile community, I must say. Our community is quite friendly and cares a lot about people. I think it's like it's a very caring community. Even people you cross at the conference, maybe you don't know them, all of them, but they know you. And when somebody is not there anymore, they are concerned by that. We have a very caring community. The Agile community is a very caring one. At least the French one, because I know them better, but they are there. It's a community itself. We have networks. We have like.
I agree. It's I'm loosely connected to the French community, but I really feel supported every time I go to France, to wherever different. I don't know, to the multiple countries or the multiple cities that have been Agile blah 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 city conferences, multiple ones in France, and I really felt very supported. And it's interesting how I can feel still supported years after going and being connected. And I think it's true in general for a lot part of the Agile community. And one of the reasons for me for doing this is to make that connection a little bit to the different parts of the different worlds, because I think indeed most of these are smaller communities that support each other, but at the same time we can support people also from other worlds, because it's a little bit like what you said about your Dungeons and Dragons. You find similar kind of people, and for me in Agile it's also like, okay, we find similar kind of minded people in all parts of the world, and sometimes in parts where we don't see it or don't think about it up front. And so that's
nice people.
Very nice. Yes. And nice to share this. And I want to move to, and it kind of moved already a little bit about the remote working. And I think for Spotify, but did you work before a lot of remote work? Could you share a little bit about that?
Before Spotify? Yes and no. So what have I learned about remote working is that I have been very stupid for a very long time on that topic. That being said, I was really wrong. So for a very, very long time, I was absolutely convinced that good Agile coach or good Agile coaching team would be like, it's like kind of mandatory to be all together in person, co-located, same floor, kind of stuff. And that, of course, it was almost impossible for me to do my job being remote. And I so much believe that I never challenged that. That was the when the belief becomes a fact, that you don't challenge that kind of things. So on that one, like I'm happy I was wrong. But there is a
I assume you discovered that you were wrong during COVID. Is that right?
COVID showed us that we were wrong. And there is a subtlety. There is a subtle things I wanted to mention here, is that today in Spotify I feel distributed. I don't feel remote, and for me there is a difference between that. It's not just the wording, maybe, or it's because of in France, but remote means that there is a center of gravity, some things, and some people are remote, like are far away from that center of gravity. And that feels bad, at least for me, to feel like I'm outside of what is important. Whereas here I feel distributed, like the internet, like the network. There is no big center of gravity. We are all centers of gravity. We are connected to each other. And if I see being distributed, I don't feel that bad. I feel connected to that folk in Japan and that folks in United States, people in Sweden, people in Belgium like you. I don't feel far away from them and just one click away from them. And that changes a lot, the things. So that's what I learned
indeed,
in the process.
That's indeed a very nice way of or important to see that difference, I would say. That is indeed an interesting part. I wonder if I can make the link to the connection. You talked about Star Trek, if I remember correctly, before. There is that network, that the evil network, the Borg. Is that something similar that you kind of, does it remind you of that, or am I now going somewhere overboard?
I would not compare that to the Borg, because the Borg was like the negation of the individualities. There was in the Borg society, there is no individual. There is a queen mother, like the queen bees, and then all of the others are slave to that one, and they have just one thought connected to a network, but just one thought. They don't have libre arbitre, self-decision, self-directions at all.
What you describe is just the opposite, basically. It's
exactly
distributed, but we all think for ourselves. Okay.
In the Star Wars, in the Star Trek world, it would be more the confederations, like the groupments of the civilizations all together that are connected into a positive and fruitful network. But by respecting that we are all different, we have different cultures, different languages, different ways to see the world. But as a whole, we create something that is bigger, that is better than just the sum of us.
Yeah.
So I don't feel remote. I feel distributed.
But it's really important to make that difference. I think it's really about at equal level, because what you described about remote, it feels much more like, okay, you're a satellite person somewhere, remote. But that's okay. But then when you talk about this, what have you learned? Is there any tip that you have for people if you want to work remote or work more distributed? The way you put it.
So today I work fully distributed. I'm fully at home, which I'm super happy. It's a choice. So first is like, make sure it is a choice for you. That you are not imposed any situation. We should be able to choose what works better for us. So if it's a choice, that's the first good step. To me, it led to a better work-life balance and a better flexibility between those two ones. But I acknowledge that you can also, if you don't pay attention to boundaries, we talked about that, you can have too much on one or other side. So what I felt super important is like the room here that you see, it's a piece of my attic that we totally transformed to be my office. So I have a door where I put the logo of my company, and people know that when I'm here, I'm at my work, and I should not be disturbed. And when I finish my work, I can exit, close the door, and my work stay here, where my private life start there. So there is a clear boundary between those two, and that makes me safe and comfortable with that. The other is like also to pay attention to, if you are distributed, means that you are global. So I can have a conversation with you, and the same, I have conversation with people from everywhere in the world. So I need to pay attention to small details, like the time zone there are, like the culture there are, the the way we engage to each other. Some people they need more time to onboard a conversation or to outboard it, whereas, for example, in France, people are very straightforward. They can jump into the meeting. So we need to pay attention to those small details to really more adjust and accommodate with that, and not jump directly into. So that was a learning as well. So I had to learn plenty of ways to do meetings, to engage with people, to connect with them, and to adjust myself with them. Also, the productivity/focus trap. So when you are like somebody like me, which is a bit ADHD on the side, so I can enter in very deep focus on something, which is super good because I'm highly productive. But if I don't pay it, if I'm not intentional with that, I can spend 6, 8, 10 hours into something deeply passionating and forget about like doing breaks, having coffees. So what I learned is to be very, very intentional also with breaks, with like, oh, you know what? I'm going to take 1 hour and go outside with my dog. I'm going to take a coffee break to the coffee machine there. I'm going to do whatever to cut that. So yeah.
But that's
the
really
learnings.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you shared already, but especially the break part, I really think it's so important. Many people forget about it, but yeah, it's and like you say, if you're distributed your work all over the world, so you have, I think there's offices and people from Spotify almost everywhere. So if you have colleagues everywhere, then it's very tempting to say, okay, I'll talk to you. And then before you know it, you're like 14-hour work days because you have people working from different parts and you put up a meeting and you don't pay attention that, oh, maybe it's already very late or very early in the morning for these other people.
Totally.
Let's check on these kind of things. So that's really is important. And I think that's, for me, one of the worlds that we're going to move much more to. And I think indeed the agile world I did my very first remote work in 2004, and I remember still talking to my coach like, I'm doing agile remote, what am I doing wrong, because it's working. And my coach let me repeat it multiple times because I was so convinced, just like you, that agile remote, it can't work.
Doesn't work.
And I was looking for, what am I doing wrong? Because it's working. It's like, no, the goal is to make it work, and it doesn't matter if that's the kind of thing. And I was since then passionate to tell people like, you can make it work in agile. It's a lot of other work. It's hard work. You have to pay attention to a lot of, like you say, you have to pay attention to the culture, to the time zones, because I was working with people from Yekaterinburg in Russia, which was a 4-hour difference. And at some point somebody said, oh, I'm leaving at 4:00. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I was counting, oh, that means you're leaving in 10 minutes. Yes, I'm leaving in 10 minutes. Like, oh, okay. I didn't pay attention because it was almost.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, and it's very small things. And of course, this person said it, but I didn't immediately register when he said it, or not translate everything. And it's these small things that help. And I immediately bought a clock afterwards for the team to show the time zone in Yekaterinburg. We were just in 2 locations at that moment, and it really made a difference because we really could understand, okay, now they are not here because they have a break, lunch break, and now they're almost gone. And so just asking for another meeting before their time of that's not what we want to do. And
it kind of pushes you also to go more on the async part, like asynchronous, to be more comfortable with that, because was also, I was quite stupid with that. With like, we need to engage in conversation to have these like synchronized ways of doing. And being distributed is really about how can we embrace that, not as a constraint, but as an advantage. Because when you have that, then it creates more room for for people to have different ways of thinking. We have people that thinks very, very fast. So those people that are very comfortable in workshops, like where everything goes super fast and so on. But there are also other people, they need to think slower, and not saying that in a pejorative way, but they think process very differently with another pace of that. And those people
and sometimes more deeper. They think deeper
absolutely
before
differently.
They say something.
And they were excluded with those in-person things of and being distributed, being in several time zones. If you really consider that as an advantage, so going more on the async part, going more on the text/written culture than on the speaking altogether simultaneously stuff, you can create others, you can open others doors, you can, but that's not easy.
Oh, definitely not easy. But it's interesting that you say, especially about the well, I would call these people, and again, there's a risk of putting people into boxes, but more introvert people that need more time to think. And it's interesting that I've heard the last, I don't know, 5 years or maybe 10 years, a lot of introverts saying Agile is not for introverts, it's not made for it. So like, if I look back at some of the earlier people in the Agile community, they were really big introverts, but somehow that worked for them in their way. But how the world has been taking about more extrovert agilists that pushing out to the world, this is how you need to work. It was sometimes lost to that. And I think indeed the distributed way of work and more asynchronously is emphasizing more for these kind of people that, okay, there is also a space for you. Not that there is no space for the others, but it's a different kind of thing.
And you can combine them.
Exactly. We need to do much more of that. Thanks for bringing that nuance on these kind of things, because I think it's really important in the whole distributed world. I want to move to that next part and about a book. What's a book that you have read, or I think you even had 2 books that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, but because last time we talked about that, so I had several books, so I took them. So if I really answer the question, what was the last book I read? It's not work related, but it's really good. It's from Hiroko Yomada. It's called The Factory. It takes place in Japan. It's with like a bit of magic, a bit of strangeness. It's very, very well written. I really enjoyed it. But I imagine that the question is more on the professional side. So there are 2 books I wanted
both,
to.
So I'm already happy with that, and we'll definitely put that book in the show notes as well.
It's really good. This
continue.
Hiroko Yamada. And there are 2 books I wanted to show you. So this one is not recent because I read it a lot, and you see papers there because I study it a lot. Is Continuous Discovery.
Oh, the connection is gone. Oh, that's really sad. And I forgot to tell her if connection goes that you can jump back. And you're back.
Yeah, that was my cat. I'm so sorry. She's the guilty one. He's there. I'm going to exclude her. Yep. She loves to sleep on the keyboard. So that's how she cut the connection. I'm really sorry for that. I live with cats and dogs, so they are the master of the room. So this one,
it's one of the things that I want to show people also. It's really about, this is a real conversation, and in real conversations distributed, some things happen. I already love the fact that I could see your cat walking around, because it's part of your life, of you, who you are. But that also means that sometimes she cuts the connection. So let's go back to the book. Sorry.
That's like me being sorry. And I have 2 of them, so so this was really good. That was I discovered that book 1 year ago, and she made a very, very strong. So Teresa Torres, she made a very, very strong impact because she managed to solve an equation that I was trying to to nail for years. So I spent a lot of time trying to connect OKRs, impact mapping, story mapping, and user flows. Because I felt that those things together could really help a team to figure it out better, what it is they want to do, explore the past, choose the impact, and so on. But the way I was like trying to, the way that I experiment with that was like clunky, was not as efficient or as neat as it could be. And suddenly I read that book, and she came up with the opportunity solution tree. So, disclaimer: the book is more than just that. It's not just the opportunity solution tree. That would not pay justice to the work she has done. But she kind of nailed that. She kind of find the solution for that. How can we gather that? And the book is brilliant. It's really simple. It's really brilliant because it's simple. Is well written, is really well articulated, is very pragmatic. There are examples. It's a tool. It's really a tool. It's not just a book. So I really enjoy that. I really recommend it. Each session I do, I recommend it. And the last one that was
before you go, I really wanted to add a little bit to it, because that book is sitting on my shelf there somewhere, and I haven't read it, but I've been playing around with the same thing that you've been saying. I've been playing around with OKRs. I've been playing out with user story mapping, with impact mapping. So it's like when you said that, it was like, why didn't I even open up the book and start reading it? So you just, sometimes when people propose a book, it's going higher up my to read book, but this is now really, you put it on the top level because it's the next one to read. It's so that
it's really handy.
We have so many good things in the agile world, and all of us were kind of looking on how can we connect these things. So it's really important. And when I hear this kind of thing, so thanks for sharing that. That's really already worth my time, the whole evening. That's worth. But anyway, move to the next book. You had another book that you wanted.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine. She's called Aurélie Vacher, and she read those. So she's read those two books, is Understand Kubernetes and Understand Docker, but in a visual way. Where is the camera? Here.
Yeah, there's the camera.
So she did it by herself. It's really about using scribing methods to teach in a very simple ways. I'm going to try to find another slide.
Oh yeah, I can better see. Yeah, yeah.
It's very pragmatic. So you have pieces of code. She used the scribing techniques to simplify and to make it a very understandable how to use that. Yeah, so I'm super happy. I'm super proud she did those books. She puts a note on that. So I was like, and I'm reading them. So some of the things are like, oh, I'm lost. I need to upskills to read it, but I really enjoy it. So yeah, those are my books.
Thanks for sharing that, because that's indeed, well, it's already multiple books, already multiple things that you wanted to talk about. So I'm really happy about that. And I want to move to, well, for me, I'm always very interested in listening to this question. What's a question do you think that I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
So this one is tricky. So my question would be, what is your favorite video game, and why is that? It is Mario Party.
So please say some more.
Mario Party. I learned about computers and coding and so on because I was passionate by video games, like the very old ones. I'm absolute fan of Mario Party and Mario Karts. Those are my best ever. And I think we don't play enough as grown-ups. sometimes we tend to forget how much we enjoy playing. So just a reminder of like, what is your favorite game and why is that? That's good. And why is that Mario Party? Because it's collaborative and you have this, like, it looks like a board game and you have the tiny mini games that are so fun. It's like, there is nothing offensive. It's like fun. It's like cute. It's, yeah, we need more Mario Party in the world.
It's actually it might be one of these games that might be good to play at an agile coach camp or something in the evening, because it feels like a connection kind of way of a lot of games are much more competitive. This feels much more like collaborative. Like
it is competitive, but it's competitive in such a friendly, safe, cute way that it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It feels less competitive than most other games. It feels much more like, okay, let's enjoy ourselves. Where a lot of the other, well, especially the fighting games and everything, it feels it's immediately not collaborative, of course.
And you connect with your inner child again, and that's fun.
Definitely. And we all know, or at least in the agile world, a lot of us know that we learn a lot by playing games and everything. And we sometimes seem to forget that we've
Absolutely.
learned a lot by doing these kind of skills. Sometimes people think, okay, but that's grown up, you learn. Well, no, there is actually a lot of collaborative thing that we do when we play games in kindergarten and in other things, like helping each other and taking care of each other and learning in general. So it's very nice to bring that part back again. So thank you.
Yeah, and let's be not too serious. We tend to be super serious. I was observing the conference I was attending, the more recent ones, and there is a tendency sometimes that we tend to connect our agile ways to some science there or some medical studies there on neuroscience, or and to have these like very serious stuff. Okay, but we also embrace that it can be just fun and light, and that's good as well. Like, just the warm and fuzzies, the English said. That's also what we need.
Yeah, I think it's for me, the agile conferences. For me, the good ones are really always a mix of all these kind of things. It's like, okay, it should be fun. We learn something, and maybe somebody can say about why some of these things that are fun, we learn about it, and then we have some techniques or other things. And for me, it's a lot of the mix of these things, and that feels much different than some of the more corporate events or whatever, where there is a lot of less that. I still remember the first, what was it, Xpday France in Paris, 2007, I think. And when I came, there was really the first one that was organized by Laurent, Bossavit, and a few others. And when we arrived, like, most of the people were in ties and jackets and everything. And I was there with my father to play a Lego game. So we're actually having people playing with Lego. And I still remember having people in our room really completely in jackets and ties. And by the end of the 3-hour game, people like almost in t-shirts, like remove their ties and everything, really jump into that, having fun and learning. Because the debrief was really deep. It's one of the most deep debriefs I've ever had. So really, people learned a lot and talked and could really explain things that happened to them and to their team. But they just couldn't see it. Well, before in the introduction round, when we asked people to introduce themselves, they were very, very serious, and it was like, and it's only, and when we brought out the Lego, I still remember the sight of the eyes on some people, like, you're serious? We're going to use Lego? And then in just less than 3 hours, they were completely transformed. And they were really into it. And a lot of them still talked with me later on that they were so surprised about how they could learn so much by playing with Lego.
I think one of the best maybe not going to have friends who are saying that, but anyway, one of the best conference ever is Agile in Europe. Because it's a very, very fun conference. It's super kids family friendly, but in the same time is you will meet some very experienced, talented people that are going to talk about very precise topic, very top-notch topics that are going to bring these like immense expertise they have, but in a such fun and friendly frame that Agile in Europe is one of the best, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been involved in the beginning. I was never an organizer, but some people sometimes think I do sponsor it because I sponsor the website, or at least the URL and whatever. But I've been amazed at a lot of how it's organized in a lot of things, by just the fact that you have very short keynotes or very short presentations, and then later on open space. It's one of the few places where I see combination of talks and open space really work well together. Like you say, a children's program. And for me, I've said it multiple times, the closing keynote to the children at the end is for me one of, it's almost the best thing of every version of the conference I've been to, because the children talk with so much passion about what they did, what they learned, because they also learned some agile stuff. Some, like, I know in some editions that they played the spaghetti game with I can't come up with the name, but and they learned and they explained
Marshmallow challenge.
Marshmallow challenge, thank you. And so we talked a lot about that, and I had my children come there for multiple times. Unfortunately, it's the end of August when one of my children has exams for university this year, so I'm not sure if I'm going to make it. It's in, what is
Vilnius.
it? Vilnius, exactly, this year. So it's in my agenda, and if there is an opportunity, I will definitely go, because I really like it as well, and I hope indeed to inspire much more people to come there.
So I hope we will meet there then in Vilnius.
It's it is in my agenda. Like I said, we just need. We don't know when will exams happen for my son. I know he has a few, but we don't know the details anymore, and probably they won't join this year. But anyway, if he has exams, I want to be there as a supportive dad, of course. I want to move to that next question, and I think you also have a few answers there.
Yep.
That is, who should I ask next? And
So my list is going to be just women. I'm sorry. Just pay attention. Today was just women. So I'm proposing you 4 names of like amazing female leaders of the Agile community. So Mrs. Sophie, she's a very, very talented person. I'm gonna give you the contact after. Aurélie Vacher, which is
wait, because I think Missy Sophie is this person, if I'm correct.
Exactly, this is her,
and that's already a very fun picture of her.
Yeah, that's at the Agile Testing Days, which is one of the also very fun and interesting, intelligent conference that we
That's
recommend
one I haven't
everyone.
been to, and it's on my list already for a few years, because people like you, I think Gitte, Lisa, lots of people have been talking about it.
It's
so
an amazing one, and a very, very inclusive one. So it's one of the best. Aurélie Vacher, the lady who wrote that as well. That would be nice, because she has a very unique path of
this
being.
Is her? Is this correct?
This is her, absolutely. So she's DevRel. So she and DevOps. She has a very amazing path as being a female developer and then a female tech lead in our industry is not or was not that much female friendly and that much inclusive. If you pay attention, is all white males from Europe or United States. We can do better. This is one of my passionate topics that I'm really. So
Well, the thing is, we have so many talented and wonderful women that usually don't get that attention. For me, Agile is one of the spaces where there are a lot of women. I don't think we're yet at 50% in the community, but still, if it's not hard to find a lot of talented women. So this is why I'm really happy that you bring again some of these people. So thanks for sharing.
But if you pay attention, there is less sexism as well in the Agile community, because like if we indeed have more females today than when I started like 15 years ago, but if you pay attention, there will be pushed to be scrum masters or even coaches, because like females, you have to talented to be facilitator. Sometimes they can be also PO, product owner or product manager, because this is more female stuff. But when it comes to tech lead, when it comes to architects, when it comes to be a developer, this is we can improve there as well. And we need to have all of those voices be heard as well on the tech side of Agile. We need to have more female leaders talking about DevOps, about coding, about testing, about infrastructure, about architecture, not just talking about leadership or self-development, soft skills. We need also to acknowledge that are competent to talk about hard stuff. So this is what I am advocating for.
It's interesting because you made me think, like, for example, my website is made by a very, very smart woman. And I've done websites in the past, but it's a conscious decision for myself to say, okay, I'm not going to spend time on it. And it's also a conscious decision that I was looking at 2-3 women who are really good at making websites. It was a hard choice for me to make, but at the same time, it's also like, I didn't even think about bringing her on the show, which is like, okay, she might not consider herself agile, but at the same time, I think she is. So definitely it's something to consider also for myself, because it's a conscious choice to put that person into that position, because I'm really, really, blown away by a lot of what she does, also by a lot of the way she looks at the world. But I could also bring her here because, on the technical side, some of these people are there. So it's important to bring that message as well. But I interrupted you, and you had still 2 other names.
Anne Gabriag, which is she's a French coach.
I think that's her.
No, that's not. But
okay.
But I'm gonna change. I will give you the picture after that. She's very, very talented into all the lean stuff. And the OKR. Right. So this is, and I am not sure her voice is being heard that much outside of France, which is a pity because she's very smart. And the last one is Nancy Beer.
Wait. Okay. That's her.
Hey, that's her. Perfect.
Yes, sorry, I had so many names that I forgot.
And if you
we have made 6 names instead of 4 names,
because I was not sure about who you already invited.
Well, and it's true that you also talked about Mia, and Mia was someone that was actually already been invited.
I checked that.
So that's indeed. And the last person, I need
would be Nancy. Just the slide after Anne, I think.
Yes, indeed, that would be Nancy.
Yes, that's her, Nancy Beers. Why is that? Because that woman was one of the brightest discovery for me when I did Agile in Europe in Toulouse last year. Mm-hmm. She's into all the gaming part, and she reminds us that to be very, very serious, you have to take it in with a very light approach, very gaming approach. So she's very talented. She has this unique energy. She's capable to move like a huge horde of people and motivate them and engage them. And she has this talent. Yeah. And she's a leader. She's very inspiring. So, yeah.
I agree. I don't remember when I met her, or even if I physically met her, but yeah, we've met many times online, I would say, and I've seen some of her work. So I agree there as well. So thank you for this large list, but not just a list, but also explaining why these women belong here and why this had to do. I want to thank you about your time, because we've been now talking for almost 2 hours, well, an hour and a half probably, because we took a while before we started. What is a good way if people want to reach out to you? What's a good way for people if they want to connect to you?
So I'm a very simple and straightforward person. I believe I'm quite approachable. So ping me on Twitter. I always answer. Maybe not the fastest, to be honest, but I always answer. Or ping me on LinkedIn. Yeah,
I think
send
that's
me
your
emails.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't prepare Twitter because, to be honest, what's happening with Twitter the last months, it's like, especially again this week, it's like, what's happening?
Yeah, I'm part of. I have one leg in Mastodon and one leg in Twitter, and like I'm kind of like moving more on that side because like what happens is nonsense. So whatever the way people can ping me, and I'm always happy to talk to or to help. I have helped a lot of students for their end of year studies or theses of things like that. So this I do a lot. So don't be afraid. I don't bite. I'm fun. So
I would say that, and at the same time, you're not afraid to challenge. I would say also, when some of the conversations we had, it's and fun, and at the same time, it's like, okay, you dare to challenge people also online. I would say, which is important as well. I think.
Online, I don't do that much anymore because like there is too much trolls.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm quite. I have a kind of a fatigue of these recurring like endless debates of like this is my agile church against your agile church kind of conversation. I'm done with that. I don't see that much value in that. But when the topic is really interesting, yes, I really engage in that. But
Yeah,
no, I'm more on the private conversations.
Yeah, but I was about to say that I think a lot of the conversations we have, they might start openly, and then we finish off, or we go too much more into detail in a DM private message where we're like, okay, did you mean that? Did you mean this? And then we move into that kind of thing, because indeed, to avoid the trolling of other people, I think that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank you so much
for your time. It was as much fun I was hoping for, and we'll definitely keep in touch. I'll add the links to the different kind of books and the different people that you talked about, and I'll definitely invite these women. So thanks for that time.
Thank you for inviting me. It's like it's really amazing. It's a great conversation. I'm really happy, and I really look forward to meet maybe in Vilnius in end of August. In person, and take care of yourself, the family.
You just made the fact when you said it now, I didn't think about it earlier, but I've actually been to a wedding in Vilnius some years ago about one of my very oldest friends that I have that lives in Vilnius, and then so I've been there as well. So that's it's also another reason for me to maybe even go there. But anyway,
take care of yourself. Stay awesome as you are, and keep doing the great stuff.
Same to you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.